Hello!
Hello AOS fans!
It's the Agents of Nethermaze.
And in this video we're looking at all the ways you can play Warhammer Underworlds.
Oh, yes, Underworlds with every new season that comes out has new cards, new warbands, and there are multiple different ways to be able to play it.
And it does seem that Nethermaze is bringing lots of new players to the game, which is great. It's sort of recovering from the pandemic, a phoenix from the flames, but we have seen lots of questions on Facebook in particular asking about different ways to play and which way should I be playing and that kind of thing. So we want to do a quick video to try and explain that. And I suppose the simplest way to play when you very first started, Pete, is...
Rivals!
Rivals!
Rivals is a new format that they came up with in Nethermaze, well actually in Harrowdeep before this, and it basically means you can take the warband, you can take the cards that are all part of that warband's deck, they all have the warband symbol on them, and you play with that, that's it, there's no deck building.
Yep, in old vernacular it was the faction-specific cards, so the ones with the little sort of faction-specific symbol in the top corner, they are the cards, you just take those. So it's 32 cards, 12 objective cards, and 20 power cards, and you just play with those, and you just have to play with what they are, whether they're good, bad, indifferent, brilliant, whatever, you're just stuck with them. And there's no deck building, and it's the simplest way to get the game to the table.
There are a few caveats with that. Season 1 and 2 warbands did not get full decks that came with them. So in that situation, you have to use one of the Rivals decks that GW have created. There is the Illusory Might deck.
Yes, and there's the Silent Menace deck, and I would recommend never using that deck because I don't think they ever really intended it to be used that way, and it's very bad. Illusory Might is quite good, it's quite good fun, and they have started to, the cheeky wasp names, of putting them in White Dwarfs as well. There is an extra one in White Dwarf which is called something, the Maze of something or other, I can't remember what it's called.
And the way the Rivals decks work in this situation is you don't use any of your warband cards at all, you just use that Rivals deck, that standalone deck on its own. There's no mix and match, it's one or the other. You either use all your warband cards or you use that rival deck, and that's pretty much it.
I will say you can see those, I think, on Underworlds DB.
Yeah.
You'll be able to find the actual specific Rivals decks and look at what they are, including the one for White Dwarf. Somebody definitely made that for you to look at.
Yeah. No spoilers there, but we do like Rivals the best.
Well, you say we like it the best, Pete, but there is quite a nifty, unofficial format which is gaining quite a lot of traction.
It's true.
And that is Rivals Plus. Now this, I think, was first implemented at Warhammer World and by Nick Baton at his Bugman's Clashes, which happen every month in Warhammer World. And the Rivals Plus is, as you might expect, it's very, very similar to Rivals, but it does have an extra little bit of flavour.
Yes, basically you can take your warband deck and then you can take one other deck that is in the Rivals format. So you can take your Illusory Might deck, or you can take the Silent Menace deck, or the Essentials pack. Yeah,
and the Essentials pack, I will just stress, you can't use it in Rivals, true Rivals at all. It's not possible, it's too many cards and you just can't. But you can for Rivals Plus, you could supplement in, and most people do because the Essentials pack is full of some very strong cards.
You could say it's essential to play the game well. And what you do then is you will build your deck using these two sets of cards. You have to have 12 objectives, you have to have 20 power cards, 10 of which are gambits and 10 of which are upgrades. But that's as far as you have to go. You then build it using whichever cards from whichever decks you want.
Yes, well, just to reiterate, it is literally just your faction cards, so the ones with your symbol, and one of those decks. You can't pick and choose from those decks. It is literally, I'm going to choose Essentials, and everything is either going to be faction or Essentials, and that's it. So you basically, it's picking cards from two sources at any one time.
To add a little bit of confusion here, as every year rolls on and a new season comes out, all the previous season Rivals decks will roll out as well. So at the moment, we do have those two that we've mentioned, but next year when the next season comes out, we will then lose some.
We'll talk about rotation in our next way to play, which is Championship.
Championship! Championship is definitely the most competitive way to play in all of Underworlds.
I mean, the clue's in the name, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty much what they use in all their standard Championship tournaments. And what that means is you can take your warband cards and you can take any other universal cards from the current season you're in and the previous season. So in this case, that's Nethermaze, Harrowdeep, and Chasm. Yeah,
Games Workshop have muddied the waters a little bit, but there was a new release of the Championship document today, which says that they're all valid. So it used to be 2 seasons, but now we're not really sure what a season is anymore. No. But it's basically the last 2 years worth of cards.
Yeah, and in this case that covers 3 core boxes now instead of 2 as it used to previously. So any cards that came out in Chasm, that have come out in Nethermaze, or that have come out in Harrowdeep before Nethermaze, you can use any of the universals there along with your warband cards.
I imagine we're going to end up with it basically being 4 core boxes at a time.
Probably. But essentially, anything that came out in the last 2 years worth of seasons, they can be used. And you can again build your deck using all the standard rules about how many objectives and power cards and upgrades you can take.
Except GW do issue fairly regular what we call far lists, which is a Forsaken and restricted list, which are cards are banned or restricted. Some cards are just so powerful that everybody takes them and it all gets a bit boring. Or some cards, it turned out, were worded so badly that nobody understands how they work, so they trash those. They tend to be the ones that get Forsaken. But the restricted ones are the cards that just keep coming up in every single deck because it gets boring and they want to change things, or they're just too powerful. So you do have to keep an eye on that. It gets updated pretty much with every new core set these days.
I think so at the minute.
It seems to be the way it goes. You do need to be aware, if you're going to play Championship, you do need to be aware that exists. And it's probably worth saying, even if you play casually and you're playing Championship casually, most people will anticipate that you are aware of what's in the file list. So if you can't be bothered to keep up with that sort of thing, then you're probably looking at Rivals or Rivals Plus, because those formats don't, well, Rivals definitely doesn't, and Rivals Plus doesn't tend to use the file list at all.
No. So that's the most complex way of building it, because you do need to keep an eye on the file list, you do need to keep an eye on the season rotation and stuff a lot more closely than with the other ones.
But a lot of people say it's the best way to play, because obviously you get to really sort of design a deck to work the way you want it to work, and that is quite part of the cerebral challenge for a lot of people. But that does also mean that a lot of the battle is won before you even turn up on the day.
That's very true. It does rely on you having access to all of the cards for the current seasons, and that's one of the reasons that people like us don't like it as much over Rivals and Rivals Plus, because it really does enforce the need to chase releases and buy warbands even if you're not interested in them.
Yeah, because of the way these things are packaged, there are universal cards with pretty much every release, and so you need to buy every single release to keep up, whereas if you're playing Rivals or even Rivals Plus, you only need to buy the warbands that particularly interest you. So there are two other ways to play Underworlds, but to be honest, I'm not sure that many people play them. There is a Relic version of the game, which basically uses all of the cards that have ever occurred in Underworlds. I think it does have its own file list and its own deck building criteria, but I'm not sure what they are. But you can find out on the Warhammer Underworlds website. Though to be honest, if you've only just come into this hobby, it's too late. You're never going to get all those cards. You're never going to find them. So.
Yeah, because you could go back all the way to season 1 and use any cards from there if you liked, and some of them were incredibly broken.
Yes.
So that's one way of playing.
And the final way, and again this is more of a group sort of fun night at the club, is multiplayer. And that is explained in the back of the rule book. I have to say, Pete and I, in all our years of playing Underworlds, have never actually played Underworlds.
Never, ever.
Underworlds, multiplayer.
No, we never had the
We haven't got any friends.
And the way you play multiplayer is you can pick one of the other options to choose how to build your deck. There is Rivals, Rivals Plus, Championship. Obviously, you can use any of those in there. There is one more way that we haven't described of, which is Arena Mortis, but that's almost a completely separate game.
Which we're not even going to talk about.
No.
Try to pretend it doesn't exist.
Never, ever, ever. With all these methods, you do need to just keep an eye out on their website for new file lists and erratas, because sometimes they'll publish updates to clarify cards or to tweak things slightly if things are obviously overpowered, but you have to do that less when it's in Rivals and Rivals Plus format.
Absolutely, yes. Sometimes GW add rules and then retrospectively add them to other old cards and things. You just need to be aware that an errata list exists and that you might be playing somebody who's using it, and you might have a nasty shock when your card doesn't do what you think it does.
Yes.
Doesn't happen that often, but it's just something to be aware of.
So there you go, those are all the different ways that you can play Underworlds. Hopefully you found this video useful, but do leave a comment if you have any questions. Do like, subscribe and ring that bell.
Yes, thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon on the Agents of Sigmar.
Bye!